Hello everyone, I am Jack and I'm back, and here's today's update. Alright, so what I needed to do was to make the fender flare for the C2 Grand Sport. I did a splash mold a long time ago off of the C2. I made a fender, but I don't want to cut the fender up. So, and I just need the fender flare. So that's what I'm doing. So what I did was the usual. I cleaned up the mold a little bit, not a lot. Did not wax it. Actually, first I brushed the PVA because this mold's gotten damaged. It was only intended to be a one-time use splash mold. Of course, wouldn't you know, I need it more than once. I have to have that piece of wood there because the way it was stored, it actually started folding up and there's cracks from where the creases are. So I had to use paintbrush and PVA and fill in those cracks. I could have used tape, I could fix this mold, but again, my goal is always to get stuff done as quickly as possible. So I did that. Brushed in PVA thickly, especially in the areas where there were cracks. I actually ended up putting a piece of tape on one of the areas because the PVA was just flowing through. The crack was that bad. I could have taped it on this side, but I taped it on the other side and allowed the PVA to fill in. Then I sprayed on the PVA to try to get it smoother. Again, it's not critical. This is just a piece that's going to end up getting body work no matter what. It's going to have to be blended in, patched in, blended in, so not really worried about it. Then I waxed it on top of the PVA. The wax was in the sun, and it actually helped because then it just went on really easy and I didn't have to worry about damaging the PVA. Then this that you see right there is gray sandable gel coat. This is kind of a special thing, but again, the advantage is it's sandable. Regular gel coat is really difficult to sand. This stuff is a little bit softer and easier to sand. So I put it on with a brush, dabbed it on with a brush. Do not brush it on, it'll end up too thin. It should be around the required 25 thousandths thickness layer. We'll find out when I put the fiberglass on it and see if it alligators. If it's too thin, it will alligator on me. I did have a weird reaction right here, and that because it's so green, that could be the PVA that wasn't 100% dry. I'm kind of rushing things. I shouldn't have done that, but anyway, don't care. If there's a couple of defects, no big deal. All right, I was hoping to be able to put a layer of fiberglass on this. Actually, I was hoping to be able to finish the whole thing, but as often happens, I miscalculated. When you know this is ready, when you touch it and it doesn't come off on your finger, it's still tacky. But there are a few spots, yeah, right there. See, it came off on my finger. So it's not quite ready. I set this in the sun, but the sun had trouble getting down in these areas, and I also had to mix up a second batch of this because I didn't have enough the first time through. So I'm going to go ahead and let it sit overnight rather than rush and have something like those little green spots show up or horrible alligatoring happen. All right, might alligator anyway. Again, hey, alligator surface is better than no surface. I'm hoping not, of course. All right, that takes care of that. I have several different front ends that I've made over the last couple of years to fit on this and that and other projects. So I was test fitting them, trying to find what fit the best. This one right here fits the best. But this edge is not real good. That other one over there, that edge is pretty accurate. So I will probably copy that one. I really don't want to cut these up because they're good for what they are in the future. And I keep running into cases where, you know, I need a copy of something I already have. All right, so the reason I'm doing that is because I don't know where the factory pieces disappeared at Duntov Classics. Otherwise, I would just use them, because that's what the previous version did, was we made it to where it mounted on the factory pieces the same way the factory pieces did. Those pieces are missing. I could try to make copies of this car, but I really do not want to mess up this car. This is a running, driving, nice, this is my daily driver. See, not daily driver, since I don't drive daily. I drive my truck most days, but this is my nice go out car. In fact, we drove it last night. I drove it here to the shop. So one of the reasons I drove the shop is to see how all of this mounting is with the C8. What's missing here is there are a lot of plastic pieces that span this gap. They're actually in the trunk. I should have got them out, but I didn't. But anyway, they span and cover up all of this, so it meets on this lip. That's what these little square holes are for. The plastic pieces snap down, the plastic pieces snap in. The sides, see that rectangular hole right there? There's another one there, and another one there, and another one there. And you can see how the factory brackets are. This one, they're all kind of L-shaped with a curve, and then the fender bolts to it. Now what's missing is, if you notice, there's a lip here, and then this is inset about a ½ an inch, I guess, all the way up. If you look at these pieces when the fender's off, this is basically a what do you call it, sheet molded compound L bracket that is glued to the bottom of the factory fender. I don't have that piece. If I had the body panels off of the other car, I would make copies of those, because the fender would be off and I can make copies of those brackets. But that's gone, so I can't do that. What I'm looking at is potentially making some connecting brackets out of metal, sheet metal, or aluminum angle, something like that. Won't be exactly like this, but it doesn't need to be. And then I could glue or fiberglass or whatever the angle brackets to the bottom of my fender that I'm making to make the connection. All right, so that's probably the route I will go. Now obviously on this front piece, I'm going to use the piece that I made, the copy, so I don't need to make those L brackets. I noticed on the bottom of this that I can use the piece, the factory piece, although again, I'm reluctant to hack up the factory piece, so I may make a copy out of sheet metal. It is pretty much a flat piece with a bunch of ribs to make it stiffer. Let's see if it's here. Nope, I don't see it. Oh well, I'll show it in a future video. That's going to be a really easy piece to make. I've got metal right over here that I got from local bulk place, Home Depot in this case, because it's the closest. Anyway, it's just roofing sheet metal. Works good for making quick and dirty brackets and stuff. Not very stiff or permanent, but it does do good for a prototype. Okay, I wonder where that piece went. What else do we have? I think that's it. So the reason why I am making that fender flare is that's what determines exactly where this goes and the angle and all that stuff. And I'm at the point where all of that has to be determined. Again, if Duntov Classics hadn't have lost my parts, I could have just put my old front end on it, put on the Grand Sport front end, the fender flares and the hood, and been done with it. But now I have to redo a lot of that work. So you can see that what it is I made a fender copy of a Grand Sport, or actually C2, with widened fenders. And then there's the C2 Grand Sport nose that is actually a copy of a real Grand Sport kit that fits on a C2. And then I put the two together. So there's overlap here. I can cut away that overlap at some point, but that's how I've been putting this car together. Was I take this piece, I need that nose, take the nose. I need the fender here. There's the fender. The difference in the fender, I could have just used the C2 fender, but there's only like 6 inches between the front of the wheel well and the edge of the fender. You can see where it was right there. I had to extend that a foot, so I needed that extra foot, so that I couldn't use it like it was, so I had to Frankenstein this together. And then I had to make it a little bit wider. You can see that that piece right there is the width of a C2. The C8 is wider, so I had to add that distance right there. I had to cover up the radiator, and I had to come out to the outside of the wheel. All right. So that's how all of this is working, is I'm taking pieces from the design to get the design and then putting it together. And so you can see on the top, here's where the fender is right there. There's the C8 opening. This right here is the C2 Grand Sport piece with its hood opening, which is completely different. And then here's where I had to put the Grand Sport bottom, yeah, with, oh, the top, and that's where I adjusted the width. All right, the reason I'm doing this is because I wanted the Grand Sport parts to fit on this car or on a Grand Sport. That way I could just buy them from reproduction shops. In this case, I'll probably end up making them myself because I like the way I'm making them better than the reproductions I've seen. Okay, I think that's it. All right, so tomorrow I am going to fiberglass that. I am going to mix the fiberglass hot so that it will only take a couple of hours. This has been on here about an hour. I timed it just so I would know, and it's almost cured. Fiberglass cures faster than the gel coat. So let's say a couple of hours into tomorrow, I will have a fender flare. I'm making it go as far back as I can. Those vents are an issue, so there was no point in copying them because they cannot go on the C8. So what I'm doing is I am making that right there. Come over here and let me show you the method to my madness. So I need to span this gap right here behind the fender well. If you look here, remember this meets with the door pretty much. In fact, it overlaps the door about an inch or so. But there's an issue with this distance right here. It needs to be just a little bit bigger. So by making that piece, I can come in, cut this right here off, and then move this seam or body feature or whatever crease wherever I need it to be to align with the front edge of the door. What I wish they would have done was I wish they would have raised this an inch, and I wouldn't have to do that. So I have a choice. I can either make the front end match the door, or I can do the front end and make the door match the front end. I may have to do the latter, but I'm going to try this first because I think it'll be easier. My goal is to not modify anything they did. No matter how much I like or dislike what they did, I'm not going to change it. I'm just going to finish this car and get version 1 done. So that's my goal. All right, that's what I've got. Let me move over here and get the final view. So go ahead, like, subscribe, hit the alert, hit the thanks if you want to donate. And if you don't like what I'm doing, you don't know Jack. Bye.